A 12-year-old girl returns from the dead with a terrifying message from Jesus. NDE. On December 15th, 2024, in the city of Chicago, a 12-year-old girl named Layla suffered a serious fall while skateboarding and went into a coma. But what she revealed upon waking defies all logic. Layla claims that during that time she saw Jesus and that he entrusted her with a terrifying message. According to her, new secret laws were being prepared, promoted by Donald Trump, aimed at controlling social media and manipulating minds. What she heard from Jesus is not just disturbing, it's a warning. Why would a child receive such a vision? What is the meaning of this message in the current context? Don't leave, subscribe, leave your opinion in the comments, and stay until the end, because what you're about to hear could change the way you see the world forever. My name is Layla Simons. I'm 12 years old and I live in Chicago, in a pretty quiet neighborhood not far from a big skate park. I love skating. I could spend hours trying new tricks, even with bruised knees. School? Well, I do what I have to, but it's not what excites me most. At home, we don't talk much about religion. We celebrate Christmas, yes, but no one goes to church. To be honest, I never believed in any of that. When some girls at school talked about God, praying, or miracles, I would just roll my eyes. It seemed silly to me. I even once said to a friend, "Have you seen God? No? Then stop saying he exists." I was convinced that only what you can see exists, nothing more. But now, I see things differently. A few days before the accident, I started feeling strange, very tired all the time, even though I was sleeping well. I had trouble getting up. I walked like I was in a fog. My mom thought maybe I was coming down with the flu, but I knew it was something else. I felt like an invisible weight was on my shoulders. And then, I had a dream. I remember it as if it were recorded in my mind. I was alone in a place with no walls, no sky, no ground, just a kind of luminous void. There was a tall man there, in a white robe, with his hands clasped behind his back. He didn't speak, barely moved, but he was looking at me. Then he extended his hand, and in his palm there was an hourglass. It was almost empty. Only a few grains of sand were left. When the last grain fell, I woke up suddenly, drenched in sweat. Outside it was cold, but I was hot, as if something had passed through me. The next day was Sunday. The wind stung my face, the kind of cold that makes your eyes water. And yet, I don't know why, I felt I had to go to the skate park, like it was urgent, like I had no choice. My mom asked, "Do you really want to go out in this weather?" And without thinking, I said yes. When I arrived, there were hardly any people, just a few teens, well bundled up, but none of my usual friends. I put on my headphones and started to roll slowly. After a few minutes, I tried a trick I hadn't mastered yet. I picked up speed. My board slid badly on the edge. I lost my balance. I felt my body flip in the air. My head hit a metal bar. It was brutal. I saw sparks, a white flash, and then total silence, as if the whole world had stopped. I thought, why is it suddenly so quiet? That was my last thought. Then, nothing. No pain, no fear, no cold, no wind. Everything went black. And then white. A vast white I couldn't comprehend. And that's when it all began. I couldn't say how long I was in that void after the impact. It was like the world had disappeared. Absolute silence, no fear, no pain. My body was on the ground, but I was somewhere else. I was literally floating above myself. I saw myself, my head tilted, blood at my temple, my skateboard a few feet away. A group of people running toward me. A man shouted, "Call an ambulance!" But I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. It was like I no longer belonged to that world, like none of it had weight anymore. And then, in the sky, something began to form. A circle. A bright pulsing light, like a beating heart. It shone, pulsed slowly, and captured my gaze. I couldn't look away. It opened very slowly, and I felt I had to go there. Not walk, not run. It was like I was being drawn in. I passed through that circle, and then everything changed. I found myself over an ocean of clouds, but the clouds were purple, with silver reflections. It was unreal. A bridge made of pure energy floated above that silent sea, and I glided over it effortlessly, as if I too were made of light. There was no wind, no sound, only that deep peace, and at the same time a strange sense of waiting, like something enormous was about to happen. At the end of the bridge, suspended in the void, was a huge temple made entirely of crystal. It seemed to float without any support. Columns rose until they vanished into the sky. Each wall glowed softly, and inside were beings, tall, thin silhouettes. They had no faces, but emitted a gentle light. They stood in rows, like in prayer, and they sang. Not with mouths, but the singing echoed in the air, but no one was speaking. It was as if each note came directly from their hearts, a song that vibrated inside me. I approached, fascinated, and then everything stopped. The singing ceased abruptly. The figures froze like statues, and a much more intense light began to appear in front of me. A light so strong that for a moment I thought it would burn me. But no, it warmed without harming. It illuminated without blinding. It came closer, and I knew immediately it was him, Jesus. But he didn't look like the images you see in books or churches. He wasn't white. His skin shone like living gold, not golden, but as if he were made of some material I don't know. He emitted an indescribable energy, and his gaze, it was as if all the truths of the world were in there. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His thoughts arrived directly in my mind, clear, strong, filled with infinite love, but also with immense gravity. He showed me a sphere. It floated in front of us, the size of a crystal ball but made of water, living water. It moved constantly, forming currents, shapes, and inside that sphere I saw things. Scenes. People walking in the streets, raising signs, shouting, protesting. Then screens everywhere. TV screens, phones, and one by one, they turned off. Black, black, black. Frightened faces, people running, police, empty streets, muted screams, and then a face, Donald Trump. He was clearly sitting at a desk, surrounded by papers, sealed documents. He was reading, signing, and a phrase echoed, not in my ears, in my mind, as if Jesus transmitted it to me. Information will be their weakness. Control is peace. I didn't understand everything, but I knew it wasn't a movie. What I saw was a warning. Then Jesus told me, without moving his lips, they will think they are protecting, but they will chain. More images followed. A large, dark room with no windows, like a bunker. Men and women in suits voted, raised their hands. On the screens, texts, laws. Everything was secret. No one spoke. Outside, no one knew. And then Jesus turned to me and said, "Prepare yourselves. Freedom will come at a high price." The sphere cracked, a silent creaking, and then it exploded. Not like glass, but like solid water. Each fragment turned into a black bird. Dozens, hundreds, flying in all directions. I saw them disappear into the white sky of the temple, and I felt something was closing. A violent wind suddenly dragged me backward. Everything began to spin. I fell, passed through the clouds, fell again, lower and lower, and I saw my own face. I felt my head, my forehead, my skull. I screamed, but no sound came out. And then, I re-entered my body. A scream burst out of me. My eyes opened wide. Faces leaned over me. People in panic. Ambulance lights. Hands on my forehead. A voice said, "She's coming back. She's coming back." And I no longer knew if I was alive or not. I turned to one of the medics and whispered, almost voiceless, They have to make a decision. There isn't much time left. Then I lost consciousness. I woke up in the hospital. White lights on the ceiling, a smell of disinfectant, a constant beeping, and a deep, dull pain, like my head had been split open and stitched with fire. I couldn't speak. My mouth no longer felt like it belonged to me. I looked around, not understanding. I knew I was back, but back from what? The doctors said I was lucky. A cranial trauma. A brief coma. Nothing irreversible, they said. But they hadn't seen what I saw. They didn't understand what I had brought back. For days, I said nothing. I stared at the wall. My hands clutched the sheets. I still heard the singing of the luminous beings. I saw the globe of water again, the black birds, Jesus' voice in my mind. I was terrified, not only because of what I had seen, but because of what it meant. A week passed before I spoke. One night, my mom gently asked, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" And I said yes. My voice trembled. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, then burst into tears. My father stayed silent, stared at me for a long time with red eyes, then sighed. "You had a dream, a weird dream, from the blow." But what I had experienced wasn't a dream. It was more real than anything I've ever known. Layla's experience, though strange and disturbing, shares some common elements with many near-death experience testimonies. First, the sensation of floating above her own body, the moment when consciousness separates, as if the soul leaves the physical world to helplessly observe what remains behind. Then, the light, always that light. It is described as alive, loving, enveloping. It doesn't dazzle. It draws you in. In Layla's case, that light took the form of a bridge of energy suspended in the sky, leading to another world. And at the end, a temple. Once again, this aligns with some testimonies, a sacred place often described as a space of truth outside time. Many also recount a wordless, instantaneous transmission of thought. That's exactly what Layla experienced. Jesus didn't speak, but she heard everything, every intention, every thought. But what radically distinguishes this NDE, near-death experience, from others are its unprecedented elements. The temple suspended in the void, the appearance of a golden-skinned Jesus, far from classical representations, the globe of living water showing scenes of the future, and above all, the precision of the message. Layla doesn't recount a symbolic or spiritual vision. She speaks of a known man, Donald Trump, of a phrase, of a plan, of a bunker, of a hidden political agenda. She speaks of laws about expression, about faith, and even mentions a year, 2025. Very few children who've had NDEs return with such a precise message. Most speak of peace, love, forgiveness. But here, the message is a warning. It's not directed at the individual, it's aimed at society. It doesn't speak of morality, but of freedom. Some researchers specialized in NDEs claim that in recent years, a new phenomenon is emerging. Several children in different countries recount visions related to politics, technology, and information control. They speak of laws, of invisible walls, of decisions imposed in the name of security. So one question hangs in the air. Did Layla see a possible future, or an inevitable one? And what if that message wasn't just for her, but for those willing to listen? A fall in Chicago, a 12-year-old girl, a coma, and a shocking encounter with Jesus in a temple suspended in the void. Layla says she saw the future, or at least a warning, secret laws, invisible control, and that phrase that still resonates, freedom, will come at a high price. Why would a child receive such a message? And more importantly, why now? And you, what do you think? Was it just a dream, or a message destined for our time? We live in strange times. Some prefer silence. Others dare to speak, but few are willing to listen. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, share this video. Make it circulate. Because this testimony, whether believed or not, asks the right questions. Subscribe. Together, we give a voice to those who have seen the invisible, to those who return with more than memories, with truths the world prefers to ignore. She came back changed, with images, with phrases, and with a look even her parents no longer recognize. She returned with a truth that many will not want to hear, but the hourglass keeps running.